I could take a break from this world. Running on a hamster wheel, but searching for something I can't feel. I just wanna be a lost girl and fly. A bird, feel my wings spread, levitate above the ground and make eye contact with clouds. Now I'm rising, I'm soaring above it all. I just wanna be free. Finally, I 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 always daydreaming, never imagined I lose my spark. Living in this crazy time, putting back the pieces of my mind. I know how to run from the dark and fly. Feel my wings spread, levitate into the clouds. I'm so high above the ground. I'm rising, I'm soaring above it all. I just wanna be free. Finally, I wanna be free.
Race, conversations, and law enforcement. This is Moses' People Speak. Funny enough, this is not Moses People Speak. That is great, great, great. Welcome. My name is Terry Watson, and I'm the founder of Strategies for Justice. Today, I'm so happy to welcome you all to the 110th commemoration of Samuel J. Battle. I am really excited today with our special guests backstage. And again, one of the things that we want to talk about is today is exactly 110 years ago that Samuel Battle was sworn in as a African-American police officer. There's a lot to say about Samuel Battle, and that's one of the reasons why we constructed the Battle Continues, which we're going to put in the chat box right now for folks who want to see the actual timeline of Samuel J. Battle and all the things he had to endure in his 30-plus years career. To commemorate his legacy, we are asking Black law enforcement across the country, either active or retired, to share their stories. And if they have any stories that they see of Samuel Battle that really resonates with them, we are asking them to definitely share that. The information is kept confidential unless they actually asked it for not to be. So moving on, today I'm joined today by a historian, an activist, Jacob Morris. Jacob Morris led the effort to revive the Harlem Historical Society. No one in the city of New York has been responsible for the co-naming of the major streets and honoring great African Americans. Some of the streets and spaces that he helped advocate for was the Frederick Douglass Landing, the Abolitionist Place in Brooklyn, the Port Robeson Boulevard, W.E. Dubois Avenue, A.Philip Randolph Boulevard, and of course, my great-grandfather, Moses P. Cobb Way, and my great-uncle, Samuel J. Plaza. So with that, I want to bring on Jacob. Jacob, welcome. How are you today?
Oh, I'm beautiful, Terry. Beautiful.
You know, it's a pleasure to have you on. You know, I know that this is a random Saturday, but to you and I, it's not that random.
Definitely not.
Well, Jacob, first of all, I read a short snip of your bio. But one thing that as I was looking for a great video to introduce Samuel Battle and what this today is about, you definitely point me in the right direction. So I want to share with our folks who are watching the short video that was done, and I can't remember what year this was done. This is probably
I think it was around 2017.
2017. Okay. So I want to share.
Something like that. Maybe it was 2016.
Well, here's a short clip from
But
2016.
I mean, man, when the NYPD Public Relations Department, gets assigned to do something, they're going to do a good job, and they did.
Right.
They did a really professional, in-depth. I mean, some of the footage that they got in this little video, I mean, it's just outstanding,
Right.
really outstanding.
All right. Well, let me get ahead.
Vintage stuff.
Let me go ahead and share this video so people can see what we're talking about. All right. Let's take a look real quick here. And
Sam Battle was a hell of a guy.
In 19, he was the first black hired by the NYPD.
As I left headquarters, the commissioner told me I was appointed and talked to me personally. And he said to me, "You will have some difficulties, but I know you will overcome them."
Imagining the difficulty of becoming a police officer in the 1900s.
You have to put yourself back in the time.
Not only were African Americans dealing with injustices racially, we had our own internal battles.
It wasn't just that he was the first black that made him historically significant. He was, in my view, he was the real deal.
I went by the Grand Central Terminal, where I worked as a red cap, to see the station master and all the boys. All the red caps stopped carrying the bags to see the first black policeman in Greater New York.
Yes, he faced a lot of racial tension. Yes, he faced bigotry. Yes, he faced, injustices.
He made it in spite of this major discrimination.
His actions demonstrate his willingness to sacrifice himself.
And when the streetcars would pass, the motormen and conductors would clang the bells, and the conductor would say, "Look over there at New York's first colored policeman."
This migrant from the South, he comes to Harlem, and he walks up the steps on 135th Street and Lenox Avenue, the subway station, and there's this black police officer directing traffic. He goes, "This must be heaven." They have a black police officer.
It was about him making a difference, him bringing something to the community.
It gave people hope, people in Harlem hope.
First black sergeant, first black lieutenant, first black parole commissioner. The doorway was opened. He was a pioneer and a trailblazer.
Good old Mayor LaGuardia. He loved Sam Battle. When Lou Gehrig died and Sam had retired, he appointed Sam to Lou Gehrig's place on the parole commission.
LaGuardia said, "I'm making Battle parole commissioner not because he's a Negro, because he's the best man that I know in the city of New York of the position to which I'm appointing him. He's perfectly, absolutely qualified for it."
He knew the journey would go on for him and for his people and for society.
I've seen the Negroes grow in the police department. We have captains, many lieutenants, and sergeants all over the city of New York. We've come a long way.
He would see tremendous progress.
The racial components are changing dramatically. This is truly becoming the mosaic of law enforcement departments. It's really starting to reflect the communities with which it's policing.
He would be proud.
It's just a beautiful thing.
well, that was. Does that give you some flashbacks?
Yeah, because I hadn't seen it in, I don't know, at least 3 years.
Wow.
Maybe 4 or 5 years. But at least 3 years. And I just came across it this morning because of you. It's all your fault.
I have a way of doing that to people.
Oh man. So I saw it. I said, "Oh man, Terry's gonna love this." So I sent you the link right away. I said, "Oh man," I said, "Hold on, baby." to my wife, we were literally getting in the car. I said, wait, I got to email this to him right now. It was 12:17.
On Juneteenth at that.
And I
Well,
shot you the email, and then I turned the key.
yes, yes.
And got the car going. Because I wanted you to get a chance to check out the footage before, you started the show. And
Right.
indeed, it was everything that we hoped for.
Yes. Well, can I ask you, Jacob?
And what I like about it, along with that incredible vintage footage, was that too much of what was written even lately in the papers about Sam and his life and his role in the NYPD and stuff like that. They get a lot of critical elements. They get it skewed, and it's just misleading. Not on purpose, but really, I value accuracy as much as possible in history. That, as a matter of fact, actually, accuracy in recapitulating and rendering history is for me the essence of why we need to learn history and understand history. Because then, if you understand exactly how things happened,
Right.
then that applies to our current realities. So like when I presented before the community board committee,
Yes.
and I had to persuade them. These are community folk, and they're representing the community. And fortunately, in Harlem, the majority of the people on the committee were Black. Some of them didn't like the police.
Wow. Right.
And it was like, why should we honor, the NYPD? And and so that's where that, as you saw in the little clip, that. So there was this book. It was called When Harlem Was in Vogue. I think it's probably the best book ever written about the Harlem Renaissance by David Levering Lewis. And it was one of the first books that I read, about the Harlem Renaissance and really about Harlem's history. I read it way back. I don't know, somewhere around 2006, maybe. I said, gee, I'm getting involved with Harlem. I better know my stuff. I can't be fooling around. They're going to be checking me out because I'm kind of white. So, 99% is not going to be good enough, man. It's like, oh no, man, you were 1% wrong on that particular fact. So I really I knew this.
Right.
I was like, man, I really got to know my stuff. So, and there was one and I never forgot it. And you hear the quote in that video, where, and it's like a legendary story where this person who migrated from the South, a Black person, he migrates from the South, and he comes up to legendary Harlem. And he comes to Harlem and he gets on the subway and he gets off. He gets off in the heart of Harlem, 135th and Lenox, and he walks up the steps. And there in the middle of the intersection, there's this big black police officer directing traffic, and it was Sam Battle. And he says, "This must be heaven. They have black police officers." And people, it's like, wow, this is a black community with black police. It's a social order.
Mm.
And even as we saw in the last election in New York City this past Tuesday,
Yeah.
and there's good old Eric Adams, former police captain, who was and I know Eric personally, and he wrote letters of support, by the way, for Moses P. Cobb.
Mm.
His office as state senator wrote a letter of support for my naming activities for Moses P. Cobb in Brooklyn.
Right.
But they saw him as a pain in the ass, the leadership of the NYPD.
Wow.
On the other hand, there he is, a police officer, a captain, no less. I mean, he made it through all the steps of the different tests. So,
Wow.
you don't pass those tests unless you're like it. I mean, man, just to
Right.
pass the sergeant's exam's a big deal, much less lieutenant and captain. Those are rigorous exams.
Right.
So, if you're a police officer, what you want is you want the NYPD to treat the citizens of New York City fairly. On the other hand, crime is crime.
Mm-hmm.
So somehow, and that's, I think, what came out in the last election is that people want a balance. They don't want it to be all, like defund the police and da da da. It's like, no, they're worried about crime.
Mm-hmm.
And they saw, what happened with crime really dramatically rising.
Right.
So the social order is, critically important to the health of a society. And
Right.
and so I felt it was important to get good old Sam honored, not just because not just because he was the first black. That was not enough.
Mm-hmm.
What did I say in the video? He was a hell of a guy.
Right. Look,
That's an
now,
understatement.
Jacob, the
That's
first
an
about
understatement. Sam Battle was more than, or what else did I say? Oh yeah, he was the real deal.
what
And
story?
then you could
What
think of
story?
Holyfield.
Yeah. Jacob, what story? What story stands out the most to you about Samuel Battle? What story stands out the most? Because there's a lot of stories about Samuel Battle, but which one stands out the most to you?
Well, I wanted, when I spoke before the committee and I had to persuade them that he was worthy of getting a street named and where, so how do I connect the story to the location proposed for the naming? And I mean, where did I get him approved for a street name?
Yeah.
The intersection of 135th and Lenox.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
then you ask, well, why there? Why 135th and Lenox? Well,
Well, if
there
you're on
was
my timeline,
something,
you'll
and
know.
now you probably know this, right?
Okay. Yes, I did.
But a lot of people don't. I'm sure, but they could like look it up. The Straw Hat Riots in
Mm-hmm.
Harlem, 1919.
Mm-hmm.
1919. So what they have in 1919? They had people wearing straw hat voters.
You know what they look like?
I've only
A
read about
straw
them.
hat boater?
I know it's a hat. That's all I know.
Yeah, it's a hat, right? It's a hat that you could turn into a frisbee.
Oh, okay.
I swear to God. Hey, you could like woo, because they were flat topped and they were kind of round and they had the brim and they were made out of straw, right? And the guys were wearing them. Okay, so this white cop is walking towards the Lenox and 135th Street subway station. And he's going down the steps, and there was these young black boys hanging out around the stairwell. And as the white cop off duty is walking down the stairs, one of the black kids grabs the fucking guys. Oops, excuse my language.
All good here.
He grabs the guy's hat. He grabs the guy's hat, and the white cop gets mad. He had his gun. He had his gun. Now, this was during the day. There was a lot of people walking around. So the kid runs with his hat. Then he starts throwing it. The other kids are catching that. He pulls his gun. He shoots the kid. I think he hits him in some non-lethal part of the body. But he shoot, and the crowd mobs the white cop and starts beating the living bleep out of him.
Yeah.
And they're killing him. They're beating him to death, this white cop. And the word goes out. Now, the precinct is a block and a half away. Sam had not gotten promoted. Now, so Sam got on the force, I think it was 1911.
Yes.
This is 1919. And Sam, he'd been trying to get into the sergeant prep school.
Yes.
To take the test. And they wouldn't let him in to take the sergeant's exam. So the point I made to the community board committee was, I said, this shows the good and the bad.
Right.
So Sam runs down the block and a half across 130 to the subway station, breaks through the crowd, breaks through the mob, saves this off-duty white cop's life, saves his life from getting beaten to death. I think he did have to go to the hospital, which he probably deserved to go. But he didn't die.
Right. Right.
So then all the students in the Sergeant's Police Exam Prep Academy voted to let Sam attend. And then he attended, and he passed the sergeant's exam. Then they still wouldn't promote him until there was a new police commissioner somewhere around 1926. So this went from, but I said, in terms of historical significance, that turning point, which I believe you have on your website.
Timeline. Yes.
I and the committee loved the story. They loved it because it had both sides of the coin. It had the discrimination, the profound discrimination and adversity, and then how he overcame that adversity. Right. And so they said, yeah, that's the right spot. Sam Battle Plaza, Samuel J. Battle Plaza.
Yes.
J is for Jesse. And so, he he got approved, and then it passed almost unanimously. And and then we had a fantastic ceremony, in front of the precinct. We had an unveiling at the intersection, and his 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 grandson,
Tony.
who was I mean,
Are you friend of
what can
Tony?
I say, man? This guy was a patriarch.
Yes.
This I gotta say it, man. This is a family with good genes. His grandson and I are friends, and he's like a retired NASA engineer.
Yes.
He supervised a division of NASA with like 2,000 engineers under him. So very, very accomplished. Sam Battle's grand, very, very accomplished guy, great guy.
Yeah,
And
I spoke to I spoke to
I'm so happy. That's the kind of thing that's worth more than money. Because
yeah.
to me, uh, because people say, Jacob, why do you do this? You're not getting paid.
Now what did your wife say? That's important,
And I'm
Jacob.
going, yeah, but I mean, to like meet people like Sam Battle's grandson, and for us to
Yes.
become friends. And you're another perfect example. Here you are, a descendant of Moses P. Cobb, and you're a dynamite guy. And meeting, I mean, I meet all these great people, and we have these wonderful interactions and relationships.
Yeah.
And I tell people, I'm saying, it's the journey, not the destination.
Yeah. Well, now let me ask you another question,
And they
Jacob,
go,
because you
this guy is. Did he say that?
now let me ask you a question, Jacob, because you're a historian as well as an activist, and a lot of you took your knowledge of history and turned it to activism, in a way of naming these streets and what have you not. So let me ask you this one question: Why do you think these narratives to tell? Why is that so important in today's time?
When I got the street named after, or the plaza, or whatever you want to call it,
Hmm.
well, first let me define uh, what it is when you name something after somebody
Right.
through the legislative process. I define it like this: a street naming, or a park naming, or or something like that, or a bridge naming, or whatever it is. It's a tangible manifestation of society's respect. It is a tangible manifestation of society's respect. And so that's it. That's
Wow.
it right there. So, and then people remember. So people didn't know about Sam Battle. I mean, he had been forgotten.
Mm.
And let there be no doubt, history can get forgotten. New generations come along. And I remember I met these kids on the subway in
Mm.
Harlem a couple of years ago, and I was wearing, believe it or not, a black Yankees jersey. It looked like a Yankees jersey. You had to look at it on the sleeve. It had the black Yankees logo with the
Right.
silk top hat on top of the baseball bat. Well, that came from Bill Bojangles Robinson, who was half owners of the Black Yankees.
Mm.
And these young guys, they were high school. There was three of them, and they were sitting across from me on the subway train, and they were like looking at my jersey, which is, and the kid said, one of the kids was looking. We go a couple stops, and then he says, "Yo, man, that jersey, that Yankees jersey is slamming. That Yankees jersey is slamming. Oh, I'm tickled. How can I not be tickled? He's complimenting what I'm wearing. And I go, whoop, and I turn into profile and I show him the logo on the sleeve. I'm going, this ain't a Yankees jersey. This is a black Yankees jersey. And they were like, black Yankees? Black Yankees. It was like, holy moly, black Yankees? Wow. I'm going, once upon a time, baseball was segregated. And they all look at each other and, yeah.
Educating our youth always.
Yeah, we kind of heard about that in school. A little tiny bit.
Right.
I said, they played some games at the Polo Grounds. Check it out, the Polo Grounds. They're going, you mean they played baseball in the projects? I said, there was a Major League Baseball stadium there called the Polo Grounds before the projects were built after 1961, which is, of course, like way, 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 way before these young guys were born.
Right.
But it was then that it hit me that, like, wow, they forgot a Major League Baseball stadium right in their own neighborhood.
Wow.
How the hell does that happen?
Mm-hmm. Wow. And you know what? Funny, Jacob. I'm not sure if you had a
Make me
chance.
feel like what I'm doing is like a good thing.
Right. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the EJI project in Alabama, where they had the monuments for folks who were lynched during that
Right.
memory. Right.
That's in Montgomery.
Yes. Right. So that space was also before it was made into that space. It used to be a project. And when I was down there, I was talking to one of the folks who worked down there, and he was like, "Well, this was my neighborhood before they built this," and he found that he was taking pride in that because he said he grew up in this area, and the fact that now people are coming to visit it and pay tribute to a part of history was important for him. So I think the spreading the history to our younger generation is worth it. Is worth the work itself.
Oh, when you do it the right way, it's very, very gratifying.
Right.
Where it makes a connection to the way they can see the connection to their own lives.
Right.
It's very gratifying.
It is. Well, I'm looking at the time. I know I promised you that I'll be done by 2:00, and it's already 2:08. So I broke my promise.
You see what happens when you're having fun. But I do want to say, and I like the guy that keeps his promises.
Yes.
But what I did was I changed the whole day around with my wife, and we took care of our errands this morning before the thing started.
Wow. Well,
her
I'm
biggest
honored.
thing was to go to the dry cleaners before it closed, and the
I'm
tailors, and we did that. Like, boom. I said, baby, we'll do this first, then we'll go and we'll get some delicious food, and then we'll come home and I'll talk to my friend.
I'm honored. Took care.
So we're okay. So we actually have a little more time if you'd like to explore a couple more things.
I do actually. And so one of the things I would love to do is maybe look at some of the events that took place that's on the timeline, because
Uh-huh.
some of the events I was people
Which
some
we
people.
talked about, which I admired that you put on the.
Yes,
And I
yes,
gotta say, since we're going there,
mhm, yes, yes,
that first of all, um, the second book, his biography that was written by that
Arthur,
former
Arthur
managing
Brown.
editor for the Daily News.
Yes,
I inspired that book.
yeah,
I did. And the story behind how that happened was from that newspaper article in the Daily News, which covered the actual street naming ceremony and had that picture in it of
yes,
me and the captain of the precinct on each side of the plaque for Sam Battle, which is now hanging in the police museum because Kelly was going, "Oh, that's a beautiful plaque," and but I want bronze. So you can't make this up. Good old Ray Kelly, he got very enthusiastic about Sam Battle. Like I said, every time he spoke, man, all of a sudden, by the time he was finished, by the 10th time he gave a speech about Sam Battle and his contributions to the NYPD and what a pioneer and blah blah, great
right,
cop
right.
and so on. Man, I swear to God, man, Sam was like his brother by the time he finished. Oh, and talking about the Negro Leagues, that day I wore a Negro League baseball jacket
Mm,
to the street naming ceremony.
wow, wow,
Ray Kelly loves baseball. He
yeah.
almost stole that jacket from me. Like, wow, that's cool, man.
Well, let's so
But
Jacob, let's.
there was something. Okay, so then I went into the, well, how that happened was, okay. So I made these posters for the
Mhm,
plaque. Okay, so I
yeah,
made the plaque. So then I said, oh, wow, I can do posters for the Harlem Historical Society, and it can become a fundraiser,
mhm,
for the Historical Society and honor Sam Battle, because here's this beautiful plaque and it'll make a beautiful poster. So I made these posters. I framed one and I brought it to the NYP Guardians boat ride, to the boat ride, baby.
yeah.
This was before the ceremony.
Ah,
So on the boat ride, oh, and the NYPD Guardians, they have a saying. I told my wife this last night. Now, you heard the old saying, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
yes, yes.
You know what that means? Stuff can get wild in Vegas.
Indeed, indeed.
Well, the Guardians, they got a saying, what happens on the boat stays on the boat. So I get invited to the boat ride.
Oh man,
Oh,
oh
man.
man.
And I had the framed poster of Sam Battle, and it's resting against the back of a chair. I don't
Yeah,
know. I took it with me, because, I wanted them to see. I didn't know what the boat ride was going to be like.
right, right.
Well, at the table next to me is Simone Weichselbaum
Mm,
and this other guy who was the deputy managing director of the editorial page. He later moved into the slot of the managing director. He was black. So the both of them was sitting at the next table.
Oh,
They took the story back to the guy that wrote that book,
oh,
the
wow.
biography. And he was like, this guy is very historically significant. He was, blah. The guy that wrote the biography.
Yeah.
So me doing the poster and them sitting at the next table, I mean, and then they're sitting there the whole boat ride and they're reading the plaque,
Wow.
the poster. Yeah. And so,
Wow.
and then they brought the story back. And then he said, no, and they covered it big. It was a full page in the
Yes.
Daily News. That was a big deal.
Yep. And it
I'll
was
never
even
forget that.
there was
Inez
a
Dickens was the councilwoman. She
yep.
jumped in front of me for the picture.
Now it's funny because I can only find one
Holy
picture.
moly. I thought she, her legs were bad, man.
Now I can only find one picture of that whole event. Now the Moses P. Cobb event, I found many pictures of that one.
You were there. That's
was
where
not.
we
No,
met.
no, that wasn't me. You met my uncle. You met my uncle. My
Oh
uncle.
man.
Yes.
Oh, so you mean I took that picture with your uncle?
Yeah. Yeah. Now the story, the way the story works, Jacob.
What a great guy.
My father called me. Now my father was there too. Actually, my father called me on the way to the ceremony. Now he calls me up and he says, and I said, Dad, what's that sound in the background? When you're on the subway, there's a very unique sound that only New York subway has. So I said, what's that sound, Dad? He goes, oh, this is me. Me and Zach, we're heading to the city. They're naming a street after your great grandfather. And I said, what?
What?
I said,
What?
he never talked to me about him before. I said, for what? He goes, well, he was the first black patrolman to have a full career. They're going to name the
In
Moses P.
Brooklyn.
Cobb in Brooklyn. And I try to explain that to folks too about
1892.
18. Can you imagine? And now, Jacob, you've done a lot of your
They
homework
didn't
too.
even call him patrolman. They called him doorman.
Doorman, and the things that Moses P. Cobb had to go through. And then with Samuel Battle coming on board, some of the things that he had to go through.
In
Let's take a look.
1911. Well, and that's the thing about, the gene pool and Sam marries Moses's youngest sister. I think it's his youngest
Yep,
sister. Isn't that
Sophia
amazing?
Cobb.
So you get the
Yes,
merging of two great families.
yes,
The Battle family with the Moses Cobb family. He
yes.
marries his youngest sister, and then, he becomes a mentor to Sam Battle.
Right. Now
That's some like heavy stuff. And when I told the story of Moses, I said, this guy walked 600 miles.
yeah, yes,
600 miles from the Carolinas to New York City to
yes,
escape from the oppression of the South, which was, pretty bad in the 1890s and
yeah.
1880s. Things were definitely going, should I say south?
All right, Jacob, let's have some fun. I
that
want
was
you
the rise of Jim Crow, was, the
right.
1880s, the 1890s, the clamping down of Jim Crow into the 1900s. It was,
Jacob,
yeah.
let's have some fun, okay? I'm gonna let you pick a story from the timeline, and those who haven't had a chance to visit the
Oh,
timeline, I'm gonna bring it up. All right. So, what story would you like to dive into that you would want to talk about? So we have, well, we just talked about Moses.
1935.
1935. Oh, I
Yeah,
know what you want to talk
I
about
feel
too.
like this is almost like a game show.
How
Pick a window. I'll take window number 3. Okay, that got the car behind it.
well you so funny enough, in our conversation already, you already talked about this story.
where you get to the grand prize section of The Price is Right, something like
Oh,
that.
how about this one? How about this story right here? This is the note on his bed. Do you remember that story?
Oh, well, that was early. That
Yes, it
was
was early.
early, very
It
early
was
in
early.
his tenure as a police officer, where they said they were going to kill him,
Yes, yes,
and that
um,
he should resign, or they were going to kill him.
yes.
But let me talk about 1935 and the Harlem riots of 1935.
Yes, please
Because
do.
after I told the community board about the Straw Hat riots of 1919,
Hmm.
I explained about what he did in 1935
Yes.
with the Harlem riots of 1935, which were huge, where they started because supposedly this kid was killed in the basement of that department store on
Right.
125th Street
Right.
for shoplifting, and that they beat him to death in the basement. And then the
Right.
ambulance supposedly took him away. And so 3 days of riots, and Sam and his partner found the kid at his house in the projects. I think he was like 16 years old. And that's
Right.
that picture, which you may want to put up on the screen.
That's what I'm trying to look for
Um,
right now. Yep.
and that's that. And Sam had flyers made of him and his partner with the kid smiling.
Hmm.
And they passed the flyers all around Harlem, and the riots stopped.
Yes.
And the riots stopped. And that was just more than brilliant. That was genius.
Yes. This is the picture right here.
That's one of the pictures, right? Yeah,
Yes.
that's it. And they made flyers and they pass them around, and it stops the worst riots in Harlem's history,
Hmm.
1935.
Yes. And
Oh, and I
supposedly,
think the Young Communist Leagues was a major instigator of the riots.
yes.
Um, but I mean, it was I mean, man, forget it, the destruction. And then they appointed a commission, and that's when Sam really came to Mayor LaGuardia's notice,
Hmm.
was
Yes.
1935. And then, Sam retires somewhere around 1940, 1941. And Lou Gehrig, who was one of the parole commissioners,
Hmm.
Lou Gehrig, the great Lou Gehrig,
Yeah.
dies. And there's this vacancy and Sam had just recently retired. LaGuardia says, I'm putting Sam on the parole commission. First black parole commissioner in the history of New York City. A 10-year term, and Sam uses his position on the parole commission to do all these innovative programs for youth,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Sam was just a great man. He was just a great, great man.
A matter of fact, the picture that you see of Samuel Battle on screen was taken from one of the programs that he did with the youth. He was huge when it came to working with the kids. So here was a picture that it was taken from right here of Samuel Battle doing.
God bless your technical expertise.
I hear that quite a bit.
We
Well,
got to
it's
get you on the board of directors of the Harlem Historical Society. You'll be an absolute asset. No question.
well, this was one of the
Because you're
inspirational.
nuts like I am. You do this because you love it.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, there's one story I would love for you to comment on, Jacob, before we run out of time. So the book was originally supposed to be published by Langston Hughes. He was the one that wrote the original manuscript, right? It didn't get published, but one person wrote a forward to the manuscript, and that was Eleanor Roosevelt. So there was a relationship between Samuel Battle and Eleanor Roosevelt. And the one thing that I highlighted on the timeline was something that she said as her forward. So I'm going to bring it up on screen so we all can see it. And it was a forward from the first
It's a
lady.
little small for me. I can't read it.
I'm gonna bring it up here. Hold on, let me do my. There we go. All right.
Forward from the First Lady.
Yes,
Okay, well, you got to read it because I still can't read it. It's still too small on my screen.
So she went on to say, "This is a record of a man's life, as he tells it. You not only see one life, but you see the struggles and the victories and the defeats of a whole group of U.S. citizens. What courage it took, what remarkable stamina to be the first colored policeman in New York City." And then she goes on to talk more about that. But one thing that got to me was this quote right here, which is in the picture. There are qualities of mind and heart and body that were purely personal, but above everything else, there was a realization that he was fighting not for himself alone, but for his people. So I thought about that quote, and I also thought about
Absolutely.
what you said at the beginning of this.
Well, you know, he was always very conscious that he was a representative of his people.
Right, and
He
that's
always that was absolutely a major part of his consciousness.
yes. And what do you think about that as overall? Because you've done a lot of work with again with the Harlem Historical Society. I think consciousness is so important, even back then, but also today. What are your thoughts on bringing consciousness to policing?
Well, personally, I really rely on my subconscious. It really helps me. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
if I don't think of something right away, I just take it easy, take a chill pill, and let my
okay.
subconscious do the work. And then a little later, boing, something pops out. Oh, the subconscious. Some of my best ideas come like that. But but
I hear
that's
you.
just speaking for me.
Right.
You know what? You just got me to thank you, subconscious.
There you go. Exhibit
You
A.
know who you just got me to think about?
Who?
W.E.B. Du Bois.
Mm,
You know that famous thing that he wrote, that blacks in America have a double consciousness. You
mm,
just made me think of that just now.
mm. You went
Yeah.
sideways. You just went sideways. What happened? Oh,
Whoops.
there
Oh,
you go.
oh,
You're back.
geez.
You're
Oh,
back.
there we go. Okay. Oh, nothing like being a little sideways. Um, yeah, that was cool.
That's
These
that's uh,
phones,
that's a
man, they
that's an
have
amazing
their
quote.
tilt thing. So you know, you remember that double, in the Souls of Black Folk,
Yes.
way
Yeah.
way back, man. When did he publish that?
Oh,
1903,
yeah.
1904,
He was around the founding of the
1906, something.
NAACP. Yeah.
I mean, so very early in the 1900s, W.E. writes in the Souls of Black Folk that blacks in America have a double consciousness. And you read that and you go, what did he mean? But just now when you, and then I'm thinking of Sam,
Right.
and we're talking about his consciousness of being representative of his race as well as himself.
Mm,
That's it. That's the double consciousness. He was conscious of himself, but he's also conscious of being a representative of the race. You know what? White people don't have that.
Mm. Wow.
I have that a little
Wow.
bit. Because I'm conscious of being white a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing all this honoring of great Black people.
Yeah.
And it's a tough job, but somebody got to do it. Otherwise, it might not happen. I mean,
No.
I can't even tell you how, for real. I was like, gee, I wish some Black person would step up and honor all these great Black people, and I was watching the demographics of Harlem change.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
What they
Yeah.
say, the demographics tipped somewhere around 2008, and Central Harlem was no longer majority Black. I was like, holy blank, bleep.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying. We gotta, do this before the demographic changes. Like, and I'll give you an example. Sojourner Truth. Sojourner Truth. Now think
Yeah.
about this. She lived on this street. I have the exact address where she lived in East Chinatown.
Mm. Mm.
And when you go for a street naming, you got to get signatures from people in the vicinity of where you want to get the street name, changed,
Right.
right? And bring it to the community board. Now, you think I can get a whole bunch of Chinese people to sign a petition for Sojourner Truth in Chinatown?
Wow. That's interesting point there.
A little uphill battle there.
So
I
you
said
find
I
yourself
got to
having
get
to
these
educate
street
a lot then, I
names
guess.
before Harlem becomes majority Dominican or something. And white people. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. My wife was, she was like walking in Harlem, and she was going, "What happened to the Black people?" Seeing all these young white women with baby carriages. What's going on, baby?
I no, my
Dinosaur Barbecue? You know Dinosaur Barbecue?
no. What is that?
Yeah, a very good barbecue place. They got a
Uh,
big location in Harlem. Well, I was there
okay.
with this friend of mine, I don't know, 4 years ago. And they had a big place that went the whole corner with windows all along the whole side of the block.
Yeah.
It was a Tuesday night, and we park, and I'm going, hey, we could get some good barbecue here. And he gets out. He's from the island of Jamaica, not Jamaica in Queens.
Right.
No, we could get some good barbecue here. Dinosaur Barbecue, they got good barbecue. He gets out of the car. He walks and he looks in the window, Dinosaur Barbecue. And he looks in there, and it was all white people. And he turns around, he looks at me, he's going, where's the Black people? hey, we in Harlem. This is a barbecue place. Where's the Black people?
Well, you know what's
That's when the demographic has started to flip.
Yes. So
Oh, man.
here's my last question.
I am
to you,
so
man.
glad you got me to think of that double consciousness thing. I can't even tell you. That is deep.
Yeah.
That is really deep.
Well, here's my last question to you, Jacob, and I want you to think about this one too. So, thinking about all of the history that's out there that's sort of untold, because one of the things that we founded on it is sort of empowering, as the logo up there says, empowering the future with untold history.
Mm.
what are some of the things that you're hoping this next generation coming, that's coming on board? What do you hope they will take from these narratives, and how do you see people taking these narratives and empowering themselves?
Hmm. Huh.
I
Well,
know.
no, I got it. I got it. I got two different takes on that. Just for
Okay.
starters, we could go on for a couple of days, but I got two quick takes on that. One is, my son, smart, right? Now, of course, he's mixed. He didn't want to learn to read. He
Mm,
didn't want to learn to read. Um, you know, and I mean, and when they're smart and they don't want to learn to read, that's worse because then they come up with all these reasons not to learn to read.
mm.
And he'd be like, "Oh, I can learn everything from TV." You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, 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 yeah, yeah.
You know, and finally, I had a big thing with my wife. I'm going, baby. I came home one night. It was 8:30 at night, and he was watching TV. Spider-Man's on. She's in the kitchen cooking. I'm going, did you read your 10 pages? Because he was behind on his reading because he didn't
Mm,
want to learn to read. Um,
right.
so he was at the first grade level coming into the fifth grade.
Mm,
Coming into the fifth grade, he's still reading at the first grade level. So I said, baby, is this love? Is
mm,
this love? You love him? You love him a lot, but if this is love, you letting him watch. And I turned off the TV. I was upset. And
mm.
he starts screaming, Daddy turned off the TV. And I said, and he's like screaming, that's my third favorite program. I'm going, this is love. You're letting him watch his third favorite cartoon program. What are you going to say when he's 18 and he can't write a letter?
Mm,
When he don't know how to apply for a driver's license? When he can't deal with, our society?
right,
Um, and so this is the wrong kind of love. It's love. It's the wrong kind of love.
right.
This was my reinterpretation of what was his name? Bill Cosby. Yeah, his layer cake speech. You heard of that?
Mhm.
Oh, they're buying sneakers instead of computers. Uh, no, no. Uh, Parents love their children, but how do they express it? So I'm saying you gotta have certain values, and learning how to read is fundamental to functioning as an adult. Period. Computers, all this stuff, you still got to know how to read.
Right.
Um, and sure enough, I said, now, we got to have a new system here in the house. And he got to do his homework first. He got to read his 10 pages before he plays with his friends, before he plays any video games, before he does any, and stop helping him with his homework because the teacher don't need to grade you on, you know, long
Right.
division.
Right. Right. Right.
you know, you know, uh, and if the kid don't know and he gets stuff wrong on his homework, so be it. Then the homework can be diagnostic. So
Mhm.
now, um, out of that, then finally I found a book where he was caught by the story. So this is in response, direct response to what you asked me, which is, I came up with this. For every child, there is a story. For every child, there is a story that connects with the inner part of that particular child. It may be Harriet Tubman. It may be Sojourner Truth. It may be Ida B. Wells. It may be Sam Battle. It may be Bessie Coleman. It may be Martin Luther King. It may be Malcolm X. Role models. They're all different. They're all great in all different kinds of ways. And so for every child, there is a story.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I love that. Because, as you know, Jacob, you and I, we've been talking for a little bit. And one of the things I'm trying to get my family to is appreciate the history of Moses P. Cobb. Because I didn't find out until my adult, right? And so
hey, man, you walk 600 miles. That's a commitment.
That's a commitment, right? Hey, I tell the story.
What? He walked 600 miles? He didn't have an electric bicycle? What?
That was funny, Jacob. I used to brag.
He didn't have an electric bicycle.
I tell the story of Moses P. Cobb, and so he walked from Kinston, North Carolina to Brooklyn, New York, and I put that into Google Maps. You know how they tell you how long that would have taken. So if you would have taken that walk right now, it would take nonstop, no bathroom, no food breaks, of course.
Oh my God!
That would be a 7-day journey. And when I thought about that and his name Moses, I was like, well, how biblical to have a 7-day journey on foot.
I swear to God, man! Look, it took the Jewish tribes 40 years.
Yeah. He was definitely ahead of his time, right?
But getting lost in the desert.
But
Moses goes up to the mountaintop. He carves some plaques. Melt down the golden calf. Forget about it.
Yeah. So I want our kids. Especially my kids. I want my kids to take from there this story, not just part of history, but also as part of saying, here's a historical figure who does some amazing things that also contribute to future generations. So, well, I gotta say, Jacob, this has been wonderful. I think that to have
you got some cool stuff out of me. I gotta hand it to you. Because I don't, man.
Well,
it's like,
I want to.
You're like, just, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you, man.
Yes, and one day I'll make that trip. You're not that far from me as far as distance wise, so
man, a hop, skip, and a jump on Interstate 80.
Exactly.
Yo,
exactly. So I'll make that trip. We're gonna touch base in person one day, and definitely have a great conversation. So, but with that said, I want to thank everyone for watching. I did find that one video that was done by the Daily News, and you were talking about the book, what do you call it, with a One Righteous Man, because there's really two books, and they're both on the timeline. There's really two books that I dug into.
The Black Shields.
The Black Shield,
by Roger Abel.
Yes.
That was the book.
Yes.
That was the book that made me know that I had to honor this guy.
Yes.
It was the Black Shields. And I met Roger Abel before he died.
Wow.
And he came after I got it approved and I wrote the resolution,
Mm.
the street naming resolution for the council. I write that stuff, and
Right.
I had to teach myself. So I wrote that, and Roger read that, and he said, "You wrote this?" I swear to God. There we were in the green room at City Hall, right? And he meets me for the first time, and he's holding the resolution in his hand. He
Uh,
printed it out, and he goes, "You wrote this?" I
uh,
shook my head. He said, "This is real good." I was like, "Boom, Nobel
he's,
Prize, baby, Pulitzer, yo, right there."
I
Roger
gotta say,
Abel liked what I wrote. That was
and
heavy because
talking about a pioneer in
man,
law
the
enforcement.
stories that he told in the Black Shields. Oh
Oh,
God.
I'm still getting through
And
it
it was in
myself.
the Black Shields that I read the story of Sam,
Mm,
stopping the Harlem riots
yeah,
in 1935. I was like, holy shit.
yeah,
And there was a picture of him with the kid.
yes, yes,
I was like, and it was in the book, The Black Shields. I was like,
yes.
wow. He stopped a blanket riot
Yeah.
with a picture.
Mm. And
This guy is special.
yeah,
He's special.
yes. That's a great book.
Way more than that he was the first.
Right.
Way more that he was the first black. He was special.
You're right. And Jacob,
Wow.
this something that we haven't even touched on is that Moses P. Cobb and Samuel Battle, they were black law enforcement that came before them, but they didn't make it no more than either well, I think it
Like a
was
month.
a month because of all that was
Yeah.
going
The
on.
guy who
Yeah,
came before
Wally
Moses in Brooklyn,
Wally Overton.
he lasted like 30 days and he quit.
Yeah, Wally
One
Overton. Yeah,
guy. One guy
yeah,
got hired before Moses. He lasted 30 days. He like said,
yeah.
blank this. This sucks.
I
This
think I
sucks.
have his story on the
The hell with
timeline too.
this.
I think I have his story on the timeline as well. I think he's the first one, and he said that he was happy to be the first, but that's where it ends.
1
He
month.
was like,
He's like,
yeah,
bye.
yeah. 1891, he was by 1892, he was done.
Yeah,
He
and I
was
mean,
like,
because you were right. Like a lot of blacks in the community at that time.
mm-hmm,
I don't know about today. Hmm.
yeah,
Um, but actually, that Eric Adams got all these votes from blacks and Hispanics in New York City in the
mm-hmm,
last week's primary.
yeah,
It says to me that, blacks want a balance and Hispanics want a balance between getting treated like a human being and control of crime. They
right,
want both. They don't want thugs thinking they can run wild and shoot you and steal your stuff and stuff like that.
right, but
And have gunfights in the street. They don't want that.
right,
They don't want that. So they want a balance. They want human treatment, but they want control of crime.
yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
What happens? Time will tell. Time will tell.
So I'm with that migrant from the South who walked up the subway steps in 1915 and came up
Mm,
into that intersection in Lenox Avenue, and he saw Sam Battle there directing traffic and going, "This must be heaven. They got black policemen." And that's a fundamental to the social order.
Well, Jacob, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I'm going to end this video by playing the video
My
from the.
hand is on my heart.
I, I I appreciate it, man. You know, it was great chatting with you. I think that you gave us some stories. Otherwise, that's not in the books. So I appreciate that, of course, and you know, and
What do we
definitely.
call it? That's what I tell people. I'm going, man, American history without black history is history without flavor. And who the hell
That's
wants history without flavor?
that needs to be my new quote now. I need a T-shirt that says that.
Yeah, we gotta add that. You know, that's like, you know.
Oh man. Well, Jacob, thank you so much for everything, and I will absolutely be in contact with you. Okay.
Absolutely, Terry.
You have a
Thank
great
you.
day. Yeah. Bye
Okay,
bye.
you too. Bye bye.
Well, this was a great conversation. I want to thank Jacob Morris for a great conversation. Guy's hilarious, man. I tell you, we've chatted on the phone a couple of times in the past, and we always have a good time. I also want to thank two organizations who are collaborating with this project: the NABLIO, the National Association for Black Law Enforcement Officers, and also the Black Police Experience. Thank you both for your collaboration and always working with Strategies for Justice. So I'm going to close this one out by showing the video that I did. You know, I actually like the one better that I showed earlier with Jacob Morris and the NYPD Guardians, but this one also talks about the book that was written called One Righteous Man, which I encourage everyone to definitely check out. So without that, I'll show this video and let me see. I had it up and I got rid of it because I was having such a good conversation. That's what happened. So now I got to bring it back up. There we go. All right. So with that said, I hope everyone have a great day and see you at that.
Samuel Battle was a smart, tough, courageous African American who demanded a place on the New York Police Department when the ranks were closed to blacks. He broke the color line in 1911 and overcame unimaginable hardships to lead thousands of blacks onto the force. He became the first black sergeant, first black lieutenant, first black parole commissioner, an aide to Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia, and friend of First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. My name is Arthur Brown. I'm the editorial page editor at the New York Daily News, and I am the author of One Righteous Man, Samuel Battle and the Shattering of the Color Line in New York City. Sam Battle was born in 1883. His father and mother were former slaves. And he grew up in the rural South in New Bern, North Carolina. And then he decided at the age of 16 that he was leaving the South on his own to go north because he thought the North would be better. At the start of the 20th century, Battle went to work in New York as a red cap at the old Grand Central Depot. With a big winning personality, he connected there with celebrities. He carried the bags of black heavyweight champ Jack Johnson. He greeted and adored Teddy Roosevelt. Enrico Caruso, the great tenor, taught Battle to eat Italian food. He even appeared in a Broadway musical. Sam Battle, quite on his own, decided to do it. He wasn't part of an organized effort. He just decided that he wanted that job. But when the department finds out, the police surgeon determines, in his opinion, that Sam Battle, this very physically fit person who'd been carrying luggage for 5 years, had a heart murmur and was disqualified for joining the force. It was a clear fraud and pretext. Battle got around it by going to a very prominent white physician. The doctor wrote him a glowing report that was presented to the police department. It was presented to the mayor by the activist who had now gotten involved in his case. There was pressure, there was writing about him in the New York Age, the black-oriented newspaper of the day. And the mayor at the time said, okay. The day that Sam Battle showed up for work at a station house that was then on West 68th Street, a crowd formed outside. They came to see what they called the N cop. His fellow officers refused to talk with him, and they kept him in silence for 2 years. But what they wanted to do was drive him out of the police force and not give him any advice or help. They would not allow him into their dormitory at the police station. So they took his bed, they put it on the 3rd floor in what was then called the flag loft, where they stored the American flag, and they made him sleep up there. And he would sleep there in isolation. He'd look at the flag and he'd say, that's the American flag. Why are they doing this to me? On the street, tour buses would come to see him. People would pay money to come by and have the tour guide say, look, there's the colored cop. So he endured that for a whole number of years, never complaining about it, never attacking them publicly, and every day, in every way, proving that he was a better cop than they were. That's how he did it every step of the way, saving the life of a white cop in black-on-white rioting, heading one of the NYPD's first SWAT teams, helping LaGuardia calm black rioting in 1935 and 1943, mentoring Sugar Ray Robinson as a teenager, befriending Jackie Robinson when Robinson was still playing football at UCLA, and giving Jesse Owens a place to stay when Owens came home from the 1936 Olympics. When the race was run, Battle wanted his story told. He hired Langston Hughes, the poet genius of the Harlem Renaissance, to write his biography. But theirs was an ill-fated partnership. The work was never published, but it's the foundation for One Righteous Man. Perhaps the only person in the white world who understood Battle's accomplishments was Eleanor Roosevelt. She met Battle as First Lady when Battle was a lieutenant. Later, she read the Langston Hughes manuscript and wrote a foreword. It read, "This is a record of a man's life, and as he tells it, you not only see one life, but you see the struggles and the victories and the defeats of a whole group of U.S. citizens. What courage it took, what remarkable stamina to be the first colored policeman in New York City. There were qualities of mind and heart and body that were purely personal, but above everything else, there was the realization that he was fighting not for himself alone, but for his people." The more I got into who Samuel Battle was, the more convinced I became. And I am absolutely sound in this belief today that he was both a good man and a great man, and that it is a great shame that he was forgotten, that he deserved a terrific place in the pantheon of civil rights leaders in New York City and America, and that his story says a lot about what one man can accomplish with determination and courage.